more pressure on to advance, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen?
Are you starting with me? You starting with me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean that is apropos, I must say. But let me say this to y'all. let me say this to y'all. It's got to be Lamar Jackson. It's got to be. I mean, the reality is that Josh Allen has been in an AFC Championship game. He's been to a couple of divisional playoff games. He's played lights out in a postseason game. We know what he brings to the table. It's not that he doesn't have to perform. It's not that he's devoid of pressure, because we understand this is the Buffalo Bills. It's Bills Mafia. It's the only thing they got going in Western New York as far as I'm concerned. And when you look at it from that standpoint, you have to recognize he has pressure, but not like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a former league MVP. He's about to be a two-time league MVP, which will make him the 9th person in NFL history to pull that off. And then you look at his 1-3 playoff record. Considering the season that he's had and the expectations that come with it. I'm just looking at a couple of numbers here, guys. 1-3 playoff record. He's only averaged 13 points a game in these playoffs. 56% completions, 225 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 turnovers, 5 interceptions, 5 total fumbles, 2 fumbles lost, sacked 19 times. When you think about those sacks, it ain't all on him, of course. It's on the team and the level of protection they provide. But nevertheless, considering how they improved the roster, you got a new offensive coordinator in Monken that's shown what he can bring to the table. You know you have exceptional coaching in John Harbaugh. You have a culture that has been lived up to. Bart, Scott, you can speak to that a hell of a lot better than any of us when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. You see that the fabric of who they are is firmly intact. If Lamar Jackson is intact and is doing the kind of things we've grown accustomed to seeing him do, there is no reason why the Baltimore Ravens should not be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, with you being the #1 seed and the road to the Super Bowl having to come through Baltimore, the way Lamar Jackson has looked and what have you, this is not the time to wet the bed or be something less than what we know you are. And that's where the pressure comes from. And I didn't even bring up the bag, the $260 million he got, all right, that they paid up to him and what have you. You got to get it done.
Yeah, but who got the bag first, Stephen A? That would be Josh Allen. And you talk about what team's window is open a little longer because Lamar Jackson is newly paid. He got that new money. Then his window is a little open because he's not going to be suffocated or suffocating the team from the weight of that contract and that salary cap hit. When I'm looking right here at the salary cap estimated next year for the Buffalo Bills, it's negative $43 million. That means that he's going to have to start saying goodbye to some of those players. Gabe Davis is going to graduate out of the program. Von Miller hasn't lived up to the expectations coming back from the injury. You know, Michael Hyde, Poyer, all these guys are aging themselves out. The Baltimore Ravens are young, Likely, Owe, Ajobu, right? You think about, all these guys are young. So I understand that it is some pressure underneath Lamar Jackson to deliver. He's been hurt the last 2 seasons, hasn't been able to finish, but he has more individual accomplishments than Josh Allen. You talked about him being a 2-time MVP. Josh Allen has fallen. We thought this was going to be Josh Allen's MVP to lose year after year, especially after that great performance that he put in Arrowhead when he lost, the game after giving up a touchdown with 18 seconds to go. So for me, Josh Allen, because time is of the essence, because he's about to have to start saying goodbye to some mainstays in this window. And yes, he's one of these guys that the window will open up again and he'll have another window. But with this group, and right now, this is the last chance. This is the last shot for them. Lamar Jackson just getting started.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson. And Stephen A. brought up some really good points as far as Lamar Jackson concerned, the contract, the fact that he's probably going to be the 2-time league MVP and all that. But Bart, let me talk to you. You know where I'm about to go with this one right here. When we talk about winning in the regular season, the whole point, what's the #1 goal that you try to do as far as the postseason concerned?
Get the
number one overall seed, because we know, and the Kansas City Chiefs have been the team that's kind of showed this whole thing is that when you have the #1 seed, more than likely that's the easiest path to get to a Super Bowl. And so when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, the way they've performed thus far, how they dismantled, all these, the Detroit Lions, how they dismantled the San Francisco 49ers, all of that has led to them getting the #1 seed. We've seen the additions that the Baltimore Ravens have added, it's particularly on offense. We've talked about in the past how the Baltimore Ravens, primarily because of the lack of weapons offensively, that's kind of been a hindrance as far as Lamar Jackson and him taking the next step at the quarterback position. Well, we've seen Lamar Jackson take the next step at the quarterback position as far as the passing game is concerned because of the weapons that GM Eric DeGosta has brought in for Baltimore. So when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, everything is lined up for them. Everything. I think we can honestly sit here and say the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in football. They are the most complete team in football. And if you go out here and you lose to a rookie quarterback, and we know CJ Stroud is a dog. But if you go out here and lose to the Houston Texans in the divisional round, that would be a huge setback to what the discussion that we're going to have as it relates to Lamar Jackson.
More pressure to advance.
But the question is what?
No, more pressure to advance to the conference round of the playoffs.
But I'm looking at this. Fewest teams point per games in playoff starts since the 1970 merger. Andy Dalton at #1 with 10.8 points per game. Steve DeBerg at 11.8 points per game. Lamar Jackson at 13 points a game. And so I'm looking at it from that perspective, and that's the third lowest playoff passer rating, 68.3 over the last 20 years behind only Andy Dalton and Rex Grossman. When I see numbers like that and I see stats like that, right, that doesn't tell the whole story. But, Bart, you know this. It will for Lamar Jackson in the eyes of critics and cynics. If for some reason they go out there against Houston this week, by the way, a Houston squad that a lot of us thought was going to go down to Cleveland because of Cleveland's defense. And their defense was a huge story. That's something that we ignored with Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns offense. Houston's defense showed up. And this cat, D'Amico Ryans, the former defensive coordinator in San Francisco, kind of knows what the hell he's doing. And so I look at it from that perspective and I say, wait a minute. If you sit up there and you game plan against Lamar Jackson and you're successful to the degree that's similar to what other teams supposedly have been successful with against Lamar Jackson, Bart Scott, that's going to be a problem, bro. That's going to be a problem.
And, well, we know the underlying, the underlying message behind why it's a bigger problem for Lamar Jackson. But I'm just saying, Josh Allen, time is of the essence for them in this squad. And we're trying to talk about measuring progress. He's been to an AFC Championship game. The next step is for him. He was supposed to be the guy that was supposed to create this Tom Brady, Peyton Manning type of matchup, right? And he let Joe Burrow come and kick him out of the contest. Right? And now he's at home where Orchard Park is supposed to be the place where he's supposed to be able to win. And now we're going to see Patrick Mahomes on the road for the first time.
But hold on, D. Woody. Only last point, and then I'll let you go. Josh Allen's playing against Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's playing against a rookie. Let's not ignore that. Let's not ignore that. Let's not ignore the possibility, and it better not happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen. I love me some C.J. Stroud. He's a stud. I think he's a superstar to make it. But I think if Lamar Jackson goes out there and gets outplayed by a rookie, that's a problem, Bart. That's a problem, D. Woody.
Yeah. And listen, I think the other point that was brought up was Josh Allen's been in the AFC Championship game. We've seen Josh Allen ball out. When Buffalo lost, it wasn't because of Josh Allen. It wasn't because of Josh Allen in that epic duel between him and Patrick Mahomes. So we're talking about a guy, Lamar Jackson, who again, more than likely is going to be a two-time league MVP, and he has yet to have an AFC Championship appearance. I think that
he's been injured for the last 2 years, though.
Well, so but I'm saying everything is set up for the Baltimore Ravens right now. Why do you the way you played in the regular season? You went out here, you earned the #1 seed. Okay, you earned the #1 seed. If you go out here and get upset, a lot of the noise that we continually hear about Lamar Jackson is only going to get louder. I can say that.
Okay, let's move this conversation forward. Do you think, Bart, I'm going to ask you this. I know you said there's more pressure on Josh Allen, but do you think it's Super Bowl or bust for Lamar Jackson?
Not yet. I know he promised the Super Bowl, but that window is still open. Like I said, like this is a young roster as well. When you look at that defense, they replaced a lot of mainstays over there on defense. Owe, Ajobu, these guys are like first and second year guys on that side of the ball. Kyle Hamilton is in his second year. So I think, listen, they have an opportunity to still continue to build and get better. And I think this would be a great learning experience. Like, I don't think it's a mandate that he wins the Super Bowl in his fourth year. I think if he does, it puts him in rarefied air. I think he closes the gap on a guy like Patrick Mahomes as far as saying who's the better player, right? Because he'll have 2 MVPs, he'll have, 1 Super Bowl, and he'll be 1 behind Patrick Mahomes. And I think that whole narrative that you can't win a Super Bowl with a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, a guy that they consider a dual threat, run-first quarterback. Now, he's changing that narrative. I think that changes a bit. But I still think that it's more pressure on Josh Allen simply because this team is old. And you know how it is when that team gets to the end. We were part of a team that was an older team that we knew we had to win. Now that creates more pressure than a young team that thinks they get more bite at the apple. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to get more bites at the apple. But I'm saying that they're going to have more time because they're not under the same constraints as far as the salary cap to be able to build on this roster.